What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest on to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. Now, these episodes are normally live. However, I am traveling this week. It is our end of the year meetings and stuff like that at the main office. So a lot of our team is traveling in for that. So that is where I am today. Although next week we will be back to being live once again. So I hope you had a really good holiday season, at least for Thanksgiving if you're here in the U.S. If you're just out around the world, I hope you had a good Thursday. So other than that, let's go ahead and get started. We are talking about December night skies and what's up for the month of December. Now, couple announcements. This is the final month for 2024 for TOTM, and that's target of the month if you're not familiar with it. And you can always go over to skywatchusa.com, media, and go down to target of the month. We will be announcing the new patch next year, which will be cool. That'll mark the fourth patch that we've been doing. It's hard to believe this will be the fourth year this is actually going on so far. But you can always see what the target is there. If you have not received your patches yet, don't worry. We're shipping those out. The holidays, or with Thanksgiving and a lot of the craziness going along this year, it's just a busy time, so those patches will be going out. However, in regards to TOTM, there is the imaging contest, which is the first time we've ever done this. We will be starting to pick the winner of each month, which will then be handed off to our guest judges, who will pick the best 3 images of the year. First place is $3,000 to the Skywatch USA store on our website. And second place is $1,000 and third place is $500. So that's a good amount of coin to put down on something or buy something that you really, really wanted. So, get those entries in. This is the last month to do it. We'll be talking about the target for December if you're not aware of it already. Now, if you want to go ahead and support the channel, please go ahead and let me bring this out so I can get this in order. Please go ahead, like, and subscribe, the typical YouTube, yada, yada, yada. If you have an idea for a future episode, you can email us at info@skywatchusa.com and title it, What's Up? We do need ideas for next year as well. Now, you can still support the channel even further. If you want, you can go over to skywatcher.threadless.com. You can pick up all kinds of cool swag and shirts and all kinds of good stuff over there. Or you can even head over to skywatcher.com. We've got a ton of stuff on sale for the holidays, which is also a great way to support us so we can keep doing what we're doing. But there you go. All kinds of things on sale. Telescopes. I believe we still have mounts going on. Anyway, there's a lot going on. So you can head over to skywatcherusa.com. And finally, really quick, this is the last month to get our 25th anniversary telescope. We still have some in stock. You can pick them up from your favorite dealer or just buy them off the website if you like. All that goes to supporting Skywatcher USA here. So we definitely appreciate everyone being a part of it and you guys enjoying the videos every Friday that we do this. So definitely full-heartedly appreciate it. All right. So if you like what you see here, please go ahead and you can follow our email list too. Head over to skywatchusa.com, hit subscribe and save up at the top. And there you go. You'll be up and running on what sales are going on, our monthly e-blast that says where we're going to be and what things are happening. And of course, our weekly What's Up for the, What's Up Webcast topic. Sorry, we took a week off. All thrown off, and then I'm having to record an episode. It's more fun to do these live than recording it, but here I am. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the big bright thing up in the nighttime sky, the moon. We actually have 2 new moons this month. We had the first new moon was December 1st, and the last one is the 31st. So rounding out the year with a dark weekend. Now, if you're trying to head out to dark skies, make sure you dress warm. Technically, it is the 28th, 29th would be your dark sky weekend. Although this upcoming weekend, this airs on December 6th. So you have the 7th and 8th. It's going to be a small crescent moon, so you'd probably be fine going out this weekend too. But the true dark sky weekend is at the end of the month on the 28th and the 29th. So get out there, do some dark sky observing, bring in the new year by getting out and enjoying the night sky. But yeah, dress warm. It's that time of year. It's cold. Full moon. Full moon's in the middle of the month, December 15th, and it is called the cold moon. This is when winter and everything is starting to set in here in the northern hemisphere, so thus the name cold moon. It unfortunately doesn't take much thought to understand why it gets its name. So you can check that out on December 15th. That's coming up in another week or so. Planets. Right now, if you're out observing, you're probably familiar with the planets. Is the time of year now that planets are easily visible. Let me just flip this here. There we go. So there's quite a collection of stuff going on. Of course, you probably see Venus. Venus is naked eye visible, easy to see in the west just after sunset. It's a great object to actually view, but let me see what phase we're in. Yeah, we're still in a gibbous phase. I like Venus when it's in a crescent phase. I just think it's cool to see it. But you will be able to see the phases of Venus with a small telescope and some aperture. A small telescope with some good magnification. Now, I find the best way to observe Venus is with like a polarizing filter to get rid of the glare. It'll give you a much better view. If you take that moon filter or an ND filter or a polarizer or whatever, but that will help with Venus quite a bit and allow you to get a much better view of the phases. And don't be afraid to push the magnification either. Now, we also have Saturn sitting nice and high right now. We're about midway through the season for Saturn, but it is still hanging out up there. Plenty of moons to see when out there. Try to see if you can see Titan and Rhea, the two brightest, and then see how many other ones you can pick off. Usually in a 6 or 7 inch telescope, I can see 3 or 4 on a decent night with some good magnification. And the rings are going to go edge on in spring of 2025. So it's really interesting to see how tight the rings are from our perspective right now, but that's a cool one to go out and see. Now, there are the other planets that are up right now as well. I know Neptune. There's Neptune. Neptune's floating around, not too far from Saturn, but it's faint. Neptune is a challenging planet to see. The best views that I've seen are usually around a 10-inch or larger telescope where you can see it's clearly it's a blue dot. But it's hard to get like a spherical look out of it like you can with most of the planets. You'd really need to have some good magnification, but Neptune's a bit of a challenge, but it's fun if you've got like a C8 or a C11 or something like that, something big, and put some power on it and you can pop it out. Now, further down, not far from the Pleiades, we have the planet Uranus. I actually like the planet Uranus because it looks like a sphere. You can see that it's a planet. I think it's actually a cool one to show people because it's really the last planet that really looks like a planet easily. If you run across it in a star field, you can see that it is not stellar. It is indeed a planet. It's usually larger than the star points are, and it clearly is spherical, and it has this very pale blue appearance to it. So Uranus is a good one. It is also possible to see it naked eye from the darker skies. I was invited to a star party years ago at this point on top of Kitt Peak. That is one of the only times I was able to see Uranus naked eye. That was really quite cool to be able to see it. I mean, like, that looks like it should be right there where that dot is. And then you point the telescope there and it's like, well, there it is. It's a ball. And that's Uranus. So that's cool. And then, of course, we have Jupiter. Jupiter is easily visible, especially once we get to around 9 o'clock at night. In the early part of December, Jupiter is right up there. It's right smack dab in the middle of the horns of Taurus early in the month. But it'll start to scoot a little bit towards the Pleiades as the month goes on. And then, of course, as December moves on and the nights get deeper, we have Mars that will be making its way currently in the constellation of Cancer. But we have Mars trailing Gemini right now. It won't be an ideal year for Mars as it was in the past few years. It's not as big. That's just how the orbit works. But it's still fun to see if you can get ice caps and dark detail. And don't be afraid to push the magnification power on that. Now, I like to add a little bit of a snap to Mars, especially in a large instrument. I usually find like telescopes, 6 to, 12 inch to be a good one on the planets. Like the really big Dobbs are really cool, but seeing generally doesn't support that aperture very often. And there's so much light that it tends to get washed out quite a bit unless the seeing is very, very good and your optics are spot on collimated. I usually like using smaller stuff like the refractors and things like that. I'm a big refractor fan, mainly because of their simplicity. I like how refractors render an image because there's no central obstruction. And when you get a really good one, especially when you're talking the 4-inch to 7-inch category, it can be really impressive. Honestly, one of the best views of Mars I've ever seen was with one of the Celestron C6R 6-inch f8 achromat refractors. And yeah, there was a lot of color, but I mean, the detail I could see on Mars was stunning. So a nice refractor, even if it's a big achromat, is still a great telescope for planetary. One of the best telescopes in our lineup for planetary, honestly, though, is the EvoStar 100 ED f9. That is a unique refractor. It's an f9, so it's very old school. 900 millimeters. It's a 4-inch scope, so it's super forgiving. And it's an ED doublet. So it's very lightweight, very highly corrected because of the ED elements, and it's f9. So it's ultra sharp, very lightweight. And if you're looking for a nice refractor for visual, an ED doublet is all you're ever going to need because it's giving you that color correction. So that's a good one. Another one that's very popular, particularly for the planets, is our 180 millimeter Mac Cassegrain, the SkyMax 180. That is a powerhouse of a telescope, and it is great for planets. So if you're looking for one, I think they might even be on sale this month. Those would be great telescopes if you're into planets, as the EvoStar 100 ED or the SkyMax 180 are probably our best. Now, there are plenty of options out there to get good views of the planets, and any telescope will work well. But for Skywatcher, those are probably our two best scopes. Of course, if you need more power and more aperture, particularly on the refractors, we do have the EvoStar 120, which is no slouch, and the EvoStar 180. I'm sorry, 150. We haven't made a 180. That's a big refractor. But yeah, EvoStar 150 is also a very good option as well, but you'll need a larger mount, probably an EQ6R bare minimum for that, where a 100 ED, that could ride on like an EQM35 or a Wave 100 even. It's pretty light. But anyway, those are the planets that are up right now. The winter for the last several years, and probably for several years in the future, will probably be for us where most of the planets will reside. And that's just because of orbits and positions and stuff like that. So if you're getting out into planets for the next several years, it will be in the late fall through the winter for the Northern Hemisphere. Now let's just cruise back through and see what, wrong way. what the moon and the planets is going to be doing, see if there's any picture moments. Right here on the 27th, we'll have Mars and the moon very, very close to each other. It does skirt by Jupiter on the 14th, but nothing worth getting out and doing your, really cool photo op for it. Let's see. There's Neptune. Yeah, we don't get anything with Neptune this month. And then Saturn, Saturday the 7th, you'll have the crescent moon in Saturn. Again, not super close. Something to see there. And let's just cruise with Venus. Venus, on the 4th, you're going to have this really nice crescent and Venus hanging out there. So that's already passed at the time of this recording, so you either saw it or you didn't. But anyway, those are the positioning between the moon and the planets for the month of December. The sun. So the sun is a very dynamic object. It changes every day. It's a great thing to get out and observe. If you will need a telescope that provides a safe ability to get out and view it. So you could use a white light filter, which is cheap and affordable for any telescope. You can get them from a variety of companies. Or you have hydrogen alpha, which is the most dynamic. And there are plenty of good options out there. Skywatcher has H alpha technology now. So you can pre-order our new Heliostar 76 solar telescope. We are in solar max right now, and the sun's really going to be looking good for probably the next couple years before it starts to taper and get a little quieter. But I wouldn't be surprised if all through 2025 and even into 2026, we're going to get quite a show with the sun before it starts to taper out and get a little bit quiet. But yes, a hydrogen alpha solar telescope is ideal for observing the sun. And if you want to see what's going on in the sun, you can always go over and search GONG, G-O-N-G-H alpha. Now, today, which is December 3rd, is the day that this was recorded. This is what it's looking like right now. Some nice filaments, some good prominence. Now, a lot of this will be moving onto the disk of the sun by the time this episode is aired. So you'll be able to see this, maybe even other stuff, but you can head over to GONG, G-O-N-G-H alpha, and check all that out and see what's up. But observing the sun in hydrogen alpha is the most dynamic way to observe the sun. Unfortunately, hydrogen alpha solar filters are difficult to make and they're quite expensive for what they are. So you'll need to be aware of that. We do have episodes that we have already covered how to observe the sun safely, different kinds of filters and what they do. So if you want to go back through those episodes, you can, and you can learn all about what's going on in these types of filters. But please observe the sun safely and make sure you're using the right equipment. Do not go use welding glass. Don't use nighttime H-alpha imaging filters. You need to use dedicated solar filters that meet the right safety ratings. So make sure you're doing that. Meteor showers. So I believe there's a couple of them. Yes, there's two big ones. We have the Geminids, which peak on the 12th and the 13th. However, we're at a 92% illuminated moon because full moon is on the 15th. So not ideal on the positioning with the phase of the moon. And then the second one is December 21st to the 22nd. That's the Ursids. Again, not ideal. Most meteor showers are best viewed after midnight because that's how, as the Earth spins, it's going into, so you're kind of like the windshield of Earth is in front of you at that point. So that's why meteor showers are generally best viewed after midnight. But unfortunately, the two that line up for this month due to the moon, they're not positioned ideally to be easily seen unless they're the brightest ones that are coming in. So if you're out, you'll probably catch more than you're used to, but because of all the extra moonlight, you probably won't see as many as you could. Comets. Now, comets are fun, dynamic. We had a really good one this year with Atlas. I still see pictures of it that people are catching from it, although it's quite fainter than it used to be a few months ago. But it put on quite a show if you didn't get out and check out that comet. It's been something that we've been observing at events since June. Had a really good look at it at the Grand Canyon Star Party this year. It was very impressive. Even though it was quite far from the sun at that time, it was really impressive to be able to see it in the big telescopes from the Grand Canyon, the dark skies. You could still see the tail even that far out. And then it put on an amazing show as it came in, being naked eye visible for nearly a week. So it was really quite impressive. But now, if you want to go out and see what's going on in the world of comets, go to cometchasing.skyhound.com. All kinds of cool things to see here. So, as you can see, there's some stuff going on. Comet C2023A3, which is the one we've all been watching, that's still visible. So you can go ahead and check that out. It's now a telescopic object. You need optics to go see it. Now, there are some other ones like 333P linear. That's got some stuff going on, but that's shining at an 11th magnitude, nearly 12th magnitude. So you need a 4-inch, 5-inch telescope to even touch it at this point. And the list just goes down from there. But they have a nice video that does a recap of a lot of the comets that are up. So if you are into comets and you want to get out and you want to see what's available, go over to cometchasing.skyhound.com and you can pick all that up right now and see what's going on in the world of comets. Deep sky. There's so many things to see this time of year. I could literally do an hour on this, on just the targets. So, just for starters, we have the Andromeda Galaxy. Very popular, very easy target to see. We were doing an event at a resort this past weekend, and that's under some dark skies. And with the binoculars, one of the best views of Andromeda you will get is with like a pair of 50 millimeter binoculars in a dark sky. You just see how big that galaxy actually is, and it's really impressive. Honestly, I think that's one of my favorite ways to observe Andromeda, is getting something that has a wide enough field of view to where you get all the extension of the arms of the galaxy. It's impressive just how big of an object Andromeda actually is. And a telescope, most of the time from our backyard, we're only looking at the core. You just see this little fuzzball. Maybe you get the two companions, M110 and M32. You're able to see all of that. But when you get to a dark sky and you have a wide field telescope, it's really nice to be able to just see how, it just stretches out into space. It's very impressive. Of course, you can see all the dust lanes and stuff like that too. Now, from an astrophotography perspective, Andromeda is quite an easy target to get. It's one of the brightest galaxies in the nighttime sky. You can do it in town without much effort. However, darker skies will help, and you have to don't have to deal with gradients as much. Again, you probably want a wide field telescope, probably about 500 or 600 millimeters, especially if you're shooting on a crop sensor. If you're shooting on something pretty small, like this little 585 camera I've got here, shorter, even shorter than that to get the full stretch of the field of view. So definitely a good one. If you are more advanced and you have monochrome capability, throw some hydrogen alpha time in there and get some HA data and help pop out those H2 regions. They look like little rubies stretched all through the galaxy and stuff like that. So, and I have seen, if you're going really wide and going really deep, There's really cool like hydrogen clouds that are in this region of the sky, as well as O3. So give that a go if you've got the equipment to do that. So as easy as Andromeda is, it still has a collection of challenging things within it. It's kind of like a microcosm, if you will. Of course, we have the double cluster. It's not an Aquila. I'm sorry. I meant to change this. This is in Perseus, not Aquila. 7,500 light years away. It's an easy target, both visually and photographically. Open clusters or star clusters in general, photographically, are super forgiving. There's not really any need to have too much worry about gradients, especially here in the city, because you can easily edit them out. There's no diffuse detail that you really have to worry about. But open clusters are really easy to shoot. The double cluster is a very nice cluster to see. There's a lot of orange stars because it's a relatively old cluster. You don't really need anything fancy with it either as far as filters go. Just point and shoot. And I need to reshoot this because this image is slightly out of focus and it's starting to bother me in this. But double cluster, great object. Again, if you're in dark skies, an average little telescope will do wonders on this object. And you can easily check that out. Go out and take a look at it. A nice little small refractor, or if you're getting like a little Dobsonian or a smart telescope for the holidays, this object works very, very well. Especially in dark skies, it's amazing how many stars are in the star field. Actually, this is a target that I use for testing optics during the winter months because of how wide the star field is. It's a great target when we're evaluating telescope optics to be able to see how well the corners are illuminated, how sharp the corners are, and color correction. It has everything. It has bright stars, wide fields, and it's a good way for us to evaluate telescopes during the winter months. M15 in Pegasus. This is kind of one of the last globular clusters that are kind of visible. Most globular clusters are up in the summer months. They actually form a halo around the core of the Milky Way. M13 being the brightest one that we can see regularly in the northern hemisphere, only to be outdone by Omega Centauri in the southern hemisphere and very southern states of the U.S. But M15 sits very, very high in the sky, and I would kind of call it the M13 of fall. It's not as bright or large as M13 is, but it's still impressive. It's very easy to see. It's right up at the head of Pegasus, about 34,000 light years away. Really, any telescope works well with this. It's a good outreach target, but ideally you probably want something about 4-inch or bigger in aperture. More aperture, the better resolving power you've got. Imaging wise, again, it's a star cluster. It's very easy, very forgiving. However, it sits in this field of this celestial cirrus clouds, which you can kind of see floating through the like a V right here. You'll need some very dark skies and some deep exposures to be able to pull that detail out. But that would be a cool thing for someone to get. It's IFN, or Integrated Flux Nebula, is what all this cloud is. But you will get that when you're doing very deep exposures from a dark location. So give that a go. That would be the challenge in trying to capture that. Visually, that's probably very difficult, if not impossible to see. So give it a go. The Ghost Nebula, Sharpless 136 and Cepheus. Now, Cepheus is like the dust bowl of the northern hemisphere sky. There is so much weird flux, dark molecular cloud stuff in this constellation. The whole thing is a nebula, and it's impressive what's all up there. Now, the Ghost is like right next door to the Iris Nebula, which is a very popular target this time of year. It's relatively easy to see. The Ghost is quite small in comparison to the Iris, and it's very close. If you had a wide enough field, you get them both in there, and you can actually see them in certain shots. You can just see how small the ghosts are in comparison to the Iris Nebula, which is right next door. But if you're looking for something that's off the beaten path, dark, dusty, and a little difficult, the Ghost is good, or literally anything in the constellation of Cepheus. Point your telescope up there and just let it go, and you'll be amazed what's hiding in that constellation. There's all kinds of just weird, obscure stuff. It's probably my favorite constellation personally, and some of this even trails down into Taurus. Taurus has a lot of really weird, funky stuff sitting inside of it, as well as Orion. All of it has this dark, nitty-gritty, until you get up into Orion, where there's a lot of hydrogen in there as well. But big collection of dust and nebulosity in these regions. The Ghost is about 1,500 light years away. Visually, I would say it's extremely challenging. You would need a very large telescope under exceptionally dark skies and with very good transparency, which is the key to observing dark nebulas, is not so much darkness, but darkness and transparency. So high altitude skies or locations under very dark skies would be ideal for visually trying to catch these things. Imaging wise, you really just need dark skies. The caveat to anything like this or any dark nebula is there is no filter that can help you. You just need dark skies and a lot of exposure time. And if you are doing monochrome imaging, really deep, very long luminance frames are going to be your best friend here, because you want to pull all that detail and all that structure out, but you need to do that with very deep luminance frames. If you are doing the monochrome and one-shot color approach, again, just pound that luminance frame as deep as you can and then go in and add the color, but it's all about luminance. Or if you're doing one-shot color, it's all about exposure time. You want as much dig into the sky as possible. Pleiades, M45, it's kind of a staple this time of year. I'm sorry. I had to throw this together on a little bit of a short notice. The trip that I'm on was a little bit last minute for me, so there's some typos in here, I promise. So it is in the constellation of Taurus, but it's 500 light years away. I'm sorry, the distance is wrong. The Pleiades, you can see naked eye in most backyards. A small pair of binoculars is fine. God, this thing is, you know what? Screw this. Okay. There is some bad information on the first slide there. So 500 light years away. Easy to see from most skies. A good pair of binoculars works great. But a small telescope really does a nice job as well. So that could be something that you want to maybe take a look at. Imaging wise, though, it really comes alive with cameras, where you get all the really beautiful blue nebulosity. Now, this is a reflection nebula that the star cluster is actually moving through. So the nebula is not technically part of the star cluster. The stars are moving through the cloud, and just from what we've been able to see in the lifetimes that we've been doing this, it's still there, but that's what that nebulosity is. The stars from the cluster are backlighting this reflection nebula. Now, reflection nebulas like this, there is no filter that will help you here either. It's like a dark nebula. It is just challenging. So exposure time and dark skies are your friend here, and that's really all you can do with it. So good luck with it. But with a modern telescope and really sensitive sensors, you can get a really nice shot with the Pleiades without a lot of effort nowadays. And you don't need to have crazy skies to get the nebulosity, but it's really cool to see it. All right, the bubble. Bubble is one of my favorite. I just like the look of it. It's really cool. It looks amazing in Hubble palettes. So if you have narrowband, the bubble nebula looks very cool, especially when you've got O3 thrown into it. God, I'm sorry. These slides are a mess. I'm not happy with it. The bubble is very challenging to do from in town. Even from a dark sky site visually, you're going to need a 14 or larger telescope to glimpse the bubble at all. Oxygen 3 or UHC filters are ideal for trying to see the bubble nebula. And that's really it. You just need dark skies, and it's a lot smaller than you might think. So adding some magnification would be helpful here. Photographically, it's relatively easy, but it is a very complex field, as you can see from here. There's a ton of stars in this region. You're also right next to the open cluster right up here at the top, M52. You have the Lobster Claw Nebula down here, and there is some dark nebula floating in the region too. So there's a lot going on here. And if you go even wider, you start to get the Lobster Claw and a lot of the nearby nebulas. Like I said, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening here. But if you're interested in just shooting the bubble itself, it is small. So you're going to have to crop in or long focal length. But the bubble is a lot smaller than people expect it to be. This was taken with an Esprit 150 with a full frame camera. So that's 1,000 millimeters. It shows even then how big the field actually is for this. But the bubble is a fantastic object. If you do have night vision, it's a very cool target to see on a big telescope with night vision. But you will need that H alpha filter. M33. This is just opposite of Andromeda. I think it does technically sit in Cassiopeia, about 2.73 million light years away. This is actually a relatively difficult galaxy to see as it's very diffuse. So darker skies. I've only had a handful of views on this galaxy where it really looks like a picture. And it was on very big telescopes from dark skies. But it's not my favorite galaxy visually because it's just overshadowed by Andromeda, which is much easier, not much further away sky-wise. It's not that far from each other. Photographically, M33 has a very interesting look to it. Like I said, it's fairly diffuse. It almost looks like sand in a way, but it has a ton of H2 regions. So if you are using a monochrome camera and you have that H alpha filter, make sure you put some data time down capturing some of those H2 regions. It'll be a lot easier for it to pop a lot more, but there's a lot of really cool detail in M33, so don't be afraid to really dig into it. But it's a very cool galaxy, lots of interesting star forming regions in there. But it is rather challenging visually. You really want to be in darker skies to get a good view of M33. And of course, M42, the Orion Nebula with the Running Man, 1,600 light years away. Nearly any sky you can see this thing. It is a really easy object to image, but it could be as hard as you want it to be as well. It is super dynamic with Orion. It works well in narrowband. You could do Hubble palette on it. You could do straight hydrogen alpha, but there's a lot going on in here because there's some really faint stuff and there's some really bright stuff. And Orion can be a very challenging target to do. And the reason I say that is because it takes no effort to blow out the core of Orion, this area right here where the trapezium sits. Literally any shot of decent time will blow out the core. So the trick here with Orion, if you're trying to get better at astrophotography, is you're going to have to learn to blend. So right here we have quite a collection. I think I even did a video on processing with this data set. There is luminance in this frame, there is one-shot color in this frame, and there is hydrogen alpha in this frame, and there's a lot of every one of them. A lot of that background nebulosity, that detail where it looks like paint strokes, that is thanks to the hydrogen alpha data, but that has been very carefully blended into the color channels, and the luminance helps pop everything else out. So there's a lot going on in here. And then also I had to do very short exposures, like 30 to 60 seconds, stacking the core right here at the center of Orion to bring out the detail that you're seeing there, so it doesn't just look like a white blob. And that's something that can be a bit of a challenge. And that's why I'm saying Orion is actually a very good target to work with if you're trying to advance your imaging capability, because it's easy. It's easy to get a nice image of it, but you really have to start working with different exposure times. But because of how easy it is, you're able to really work with the data because there's so much signal coming through. But to get a really nice, smooth image of Orion like you see here, or with a lot of other images where the core looks very uniform, you have to learn to take shorter exposures and carefully blend that into the core. And then if you want to go super deep to bring out the background, you're going to need some really long exposures, and using some hydrogen alpha is a good way to pop some of that detail out. But as I've repeated several times already, Orion is as easy or as complicated as you want it to be. And it's a very good target for budding astrophotographers and even advanced astrophotographers to go at, because you can make it as complicated as you want it to be. And you really can kind of hone in on not only your photography skill, but your processing skills with this target. So take this as a time to really try it out and see what you can get from that. All right, so Totem, target of the month was Stefan's Quintet. We'll be getting everybody raked together and hopefully get those out in the next week or two. I'd like to get them out before the end of the year, so that way everyone's just done. But that was the November target of the month. Quite small. I've seen some of the images. You guys did a good job. But yeah, it is very off the beaten path for this target. It's a really fun one from Dark Skies with a big scope, because there's all kinds of little things inside of there that you can see. December, we're going a little bit off the deep end. This is Barnard 174. It's a dark nebula, of course. And it's easy for anyone in the Northern Hemisphere to get. We're trying to make sure we don't go too far south and clip the chance for our friends up in Canada not to get it. So Barnard 174. Now, this one is in a very dense star field, but a lot of the background in here has a lot of hydrogen in it. So I shot this and it looked really good, but I saw the detail of hydrogen. So then we went back and added more hydrogen data and got this shot. So don't be afraid to maybe dig a little deeper if you've got H alpha and shoot some H alpha data and pop some of that out. It could be pretty interesting to see what you get there. So there you go. All right, everyone, that's pretty much it for this episode. I know we're finishing a little bit early. Normally we have lots of questions and stuff, and we don't. So, because this is a pre-recorded episode, so a little bit early. But before we wrap up, please go ahead, like and subscribe. If you have questions or an idea for an episode, email us at info@skywatchusa.com. Title it What's Up. But that's it for December Night Skies. Next week, which will be our return to live episodes, we'll be talking about the 2024 gift guide. This was a reschedule from us announcing the Heliostar last month. So that episode took precedent. So we punted this episode to next week. So we'll be doing that on a live episode. Also, our Anne Druin episode, which was actually supposed to be recorded this morning, also had to be punted. Unfortunately, they had a family issue, thing come up, so we had to be respectful of that. But it is being rescheduled to February 28th for us to have Ann Druin on, which is going to be very exciting. And it's actually more preferred because it will be live, which means we will have Ann on with us live February 28th. So we're very excited about that episode. So I would mark your calendars because she's going to be, to date, the biggest guest we've ever had on to date. So we're very excited to have Ann on. But we'll get through the holidays and let them take care of their family things that they need to address. And then we'll have her on at the end of February, which will be awesome. So mark your calendars, February 28th for the Ann Druin episode. All right, everyone. That's it for December Night Skies. Because Ann Druin will not be on at the end of this month, which I believe is December 20th, is the last episode of the year, we will be doing another State of Skywatcher episode. My boss, Jeff Simon, will be on. Our marketing guru, Jared Donkersley, will be on. They run a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff on the webcast, like the chat and evaluating things. They are usually a part of this on every episode. You guys just don't get to see them because they're working behind the scenes. But this webcast, and of course everything Skywatcher related, is a team effort, and there's a lot of people involved, many of them that we don't even have time to give a shout out to, but the Skywatcher team is very vast and stretches all over the world. So I appreciate being the figurehead for North America, but I can't do my job without this fleet of people making it possible. So we'll be doing a State of Skywatcher episode where we'll have Jeff and Jared on, just talking about how Skywatcher did for 2024, our new products like the wave mounts, Heliostar, and maybe what you can expect to see in 2025. I will let you know, as the person who does a lot of the final testing for products, Skywatcher is busy. There is so many things on the burners right now, and so many really cool things that we're excited to share over the next couple years. I think you guys will be pretty excited with what's coming down the pipeline. And we're talking dozens of things at this point. So we are firing on all cylinders right now. Our engineering team is doing an amazing job at coming up with things. Things that you could probably take a guess at. Things that might be obvious when they get released. And things you probably couldn't even think that we're going to release. It's all over the map what's coming along, and we'll be excited to show you. But if you want to know more, you got to be on the webcast, because this is where we make the announcements and show off those products. Remember when I teased you guys back here, there's that scope is in the wings as well. So Skywatcher has a ton of stuff coming. It's going to be a very exciting couple of years next year. Hang on, there's a lot of stuff. I don't even know what's landing next year, but there's a lot of stuff that will likely land throughout the year. NEAF next year, early April, is going to be really fun. If you're coming, we'll have the wave mounts. Heliostar will be there, and there's probably going to be some other stuff that you guys don't know about yet that will also be coming. But anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was a pre-recorded episode. But we will see you guys next week for a live episode. And other than that, have a safe weekend. And we will see you guys next Friday. Take care. Bye, everyone.